everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for 7 success skills every student needs. My name is Dawn McCotter, and I'm the Curriculum and Instruction Senior Manager here at the Van Andel Institute for Education. And with me is my colleague, Robin. Hey there, Robin.
Dawn, hey everybody. Thanks for being with us today.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, Robin is our behind-the-scenes expert, so if you run into any issues or any questions, feel free to shoot her a message in the chat. And speaking of chat, I believe Robin has put this in there, the admin guide, the real rigor. And this, in this admin guide contains all of our resources and the strategies that I'm going to be walking through today on these 7 success skills. A little bit about who we are. So we are both a research and a K-12 education program for both educators and families. And part of the research facility, we have researchers from all over the world that are studying diseases such as cancer, epigenetics, Parkinson's, other neurodegenerative diseases, as well as metabolism, nutrition, and epigenetics, and how that plays a role in those diseases. In our K-12 programs, which Robin and I are a part of, we have programs such as field trips for teachers, we have after-school programs, summer camps, and then we take everything that we've learned by working with the students and we bring that to teachers in professional development, our summer conference, and also instructional resources. And so today's webinar is sponsored by one of those instructional resources. This is our brand new, newly launched VAI Educator Studio. This is a one-stop shop for your teachers to not only to build those skills we're going to talk about today, but also to promote deeper learning. So take a look at the VAI Educator Studio. So today's agenda, we're going to focus on 2 main areas. First, we're going to set the stage. Which skills matter most and why? And then we're going to share our journey and best practices, including free resources for you to take back to your teachers, to your schools, buildings. Oh, and of course, there's an enter to win. So be sure to stay on because at the end, there'll be a chance to win. I will not give away the prize yet, so you'll have to wait until the end of the webinar for that. All right, so let's set the stage. Which skills matter most and why? So I wanted to share a little bit of some research, recent research. The first is coming out of the Harvard Business Review. And this was research that was conducted and then published in August of this year. And they really focused on the importance of soft skills and how much they matter more today than ever because of the ever-changing landscape when we're looking at jobs and careers with technology such as artificial intelligence and of the sort. And so those skills such as collaboration, critical thinking, communication, problem solving, adaptability, and social skills are identified as crucial skills for future success. And the reason being is that because the career landscape is evolving so rapidly, this really supports long-term employability, and those specialized skills, those technical skills, although important, they can vanish quickly as that landscape and those skills required change. But those foundational skills like collaboration, critical thinking, our emotional intelligence are so crucial to success. And I was reading an article that quoted an Amazon executive who mentioned that hard skills will get you in, soft skills will get you far. I also wanted to share, this was a great excerpt from the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs report in January of 2025. And it states, although technological skills are rising fast, human-centered capabilities like creative thinking, resilience, agility, curiosity, leadership, and social influence are also among the top skills expected to grow in importance. So this was in January of 2025. You fast forward to August of 2025, the Harvard Business Review, their research showed just that, the importance of these skills. Now we wanted to take this a step further. So we partnered with an outside research scientist, and we really wanted to find out what scientists say are those most important skills to be a successful scientist or problem solver. So we had that researcher connect with many of our scientists here but also scientists, STEM professionals outside of our research organization as well. And so when we asked them this question, we asked them to put a number. How much are these skills or qualities valued? So we gave them a list of skills, and here are the results. And you can see those that rose to the top: critical thinking, scientific integrity, perseverance, communication, and curiosity. And then those that were near the bottom: high standardized test scores, memorization, good grades, content knowledge. Now, if we were to ask the same question of educators when it came to the educational system, how does the system that we're currently in value these skills and qualities? That would be flipped. We know as educators that there is a disconnect between teaching the whole child, teaching the content and the skills that are so important to be successful outside of school. And so how can we combat that? How can we mitigate that disconnect here? And so we took it upon ourselves in our programs to really find out how that can happen, how we can make this happen to put us just as much value on those skills as we do the content. Because you know in school that you're beholden to standards, right? You're beholden to these standardized test scores, and there's no test for these skills. We're not testing critical thinking, but we know that that is important. And so based upon this initial research, we identified these as our 7 success skills: collaboration, communication, creative thinking, critical thinking, curiosity, perseverance, and self-direction. Now, this came out of interviews with scientists and STEM professionals, but these are skills that are not just a part of science. This is a part of problem solving, of being successful outside in the real world, in job situations. So I'm going to take you on a little journey that we've used with these skills and the best practices that we found and free resources that you can bring back to your schools. So our after school program, we have had this for almost 20 years now, and we meet with 2 different cohorts each semester. These cohorts meet twice a week for 2 hours, so it's roughly 14 weeks each semester. And during the cohorts, the students are investigating different scientific or engineering problems, challenges. They're doing a lot of hands-on science, a lot of inquiry-based instruction, also authentic learning. So as part of their program, they're also taking the learning and making the world a better place, taking the science, learning, the engineering for a purpose. But one of the things that we thought about as we were going through this skills research is that we're not really intentionally teaching the skills. We've got a great, strong foundation. We know that the students are persevering when they're doing all these trials. We know that the students are collaborating because we set them in collaborative groups, and that's a crucial part of any authentic, project-based learning. We know that they're thinking critically and creatively as they're analyzing their data and they're deciding how to represent it. But do the students know that? And so we decided to shift the lens. So 3 years ago, as we're starting this research study of these skills, we wanted to make sure that we were intentionally, explicitly teaching these 7 skills. So when the students walked into our classroom, they knew that these skills were valued just as much as the science and engineering concepts that we were teaching. And we wanted to really see, do these skills, the intentional teaching these skills, really move the needle in the students' understanding of the skills and their improvement or use of the skills. And so we again worked with an outside research scientist, and we put together this evaluation study. And we had 3 main areas that we focus in collecting data. One is that we partnered with outside evaluators. These were practicing teachers or retired teachers that at the end, near the end of our cohort session, would interview the students regarding these skills, and using a rubric that had been validated, put together basically this assessments of the students in these different skills. We also engage parents in focus groups. After every cohort, we talked with parents and how did, what they did in our programs impact their use, their understanding, their improvement in these skills. And then we also had the students self-evaluate. We had them do a pre and post assessment on their use and understanding of the skills by identifying how strongly they disagree or strongly agree with certain statements in regards to the skills. And this is just one set of data, which we call growth in action. Now, we're still working on this research. So this is preliminary data for about 6 cohorts, but we're on our 9th and 10th cohort right now collecting data. But what we found in this one data set where the students were self-reporting their agreements level of these different skills is that we've seen improvements. They're improving in these skills throughout those 14 weeks. And so it's one thing to look at the data, but it's another thing to look at it from a student's perspective. So I'm going to share with you a quick clip about just that. Here we go.
I think perseverance was probably one of the most useful skills because not everything we do is easy, and perseverance is just keeping going even if it's not easy.
Collaboration, because at first our team was kind of everywhere and we finally pulled it together and figured out who worked best at what thing, and that was really fun.
I think it was creativity because you have to be creative in the multiple different things that we've done. Like zebrafish, you have to be creative in the way that you look for eggs, and because they're really small and they can be hard to find.
Probably communication and curiosity / creative thinking were the most useful because we had to use those to work with teammates and to come up with solutions for our problems.
Probably collaboration, because our team had to collaborate and have different ideas to then put them all together and then just make them one giant plan. So then, yeah, the collaboration definitely played a big role in it. So yeah.
Critical thinking, because everybody had their own ideas, and we had to think about what should we do that everybody liked. It was kind of hard, but then we still came up with the ideas.
Curiosity, because I always wondered what could happen next, so I wanted to keep going on.
Okay, so I love that. I always want to know what happened next, so I wanted to keep going on. So all of this, the last 3 years, that we've learned about the skills and the importance and how to do this with students, we want to share this with educators. And so we realized this was an after-school program. But what we found is that the strategies, the big ideas that we used, something that definitely translates very well and elegantly into the classroom. And we do understand the constraints of time. We understand the packed days and adding more into an already packed day. So how can we do this in an efficient way where you have a great return on investment? And so I want to share with you 3 main ideas to do just that. And so the first is that explicit skill instruction and daily reflection, right? And it's one thing to know that my students are collaborating, but do they know that they're collaborating and do they understand what that means? And so one of the things that we did as soon as our cohort starts is that we get them involved in the skills. And so whether it's an opening activity, a bell ringer, we have them we had them do this sort. So we've got the different skills on these little slips of paper, and then they're identifying, okay, which ones do you think are going to be most important for you, maybe throughout this program or in whatever activity they're doing, and then they rank them and they have a discussion. Another way to think about it is reflecting on which ones are maybe more challenging, for you, or which are the ones that you feel more confident in having that discussion. So having that reflection, allowing them to really think about their thinking, that metacognition, it's a very powerful way to explicitly teach, implement these skills into the classroom. Another way to do that is to have common definitions of what these skills mean. And so we use the tried and true anchor charts. They're very effective. And so thinking of things like, for example, you see there on the right of your screen, perseverance. Having a conversation, well, what does perseverance really look like? If you walk into a classroom, it's like, oh, this looks like a classroom that's persevering. What are those characteristics? What does it sound like? What would students be saying? What would teachers be saying? And what does it feel like? When you're persevering, how do you feel? And having those posted around the room, or having the students put those in their binders digitally, is just a great way to really bring those skills to the forefront. I want to share something that we did just recently in our cohort. This was after about 7 weeks into our cohort program. So this was just a week or so ago. And we wanted to do some sort of team building engagement activity, but they would have to really think about their skills. But they didn't know this, that it was more of a conversation of skills. We put 4 tarps in the classroom, and we put 6 students on each tarp. And their challenge was to flip the tarp over without any one of them coming off the tarp. So they had to work together to solve this problem. Now, we purposefully did not make this a competition. We didn't time it. We just wanted to see if they could work together to solve this problem. And so once every group did, and they had a great time doing it, so you can see by that picture there, we had a question about skills. What are the skills that you had to use to be successful? What skills were challenging? And maybe that might have been the same one. So we talked a lot about communication, collaboration, and how everyone has their own ideas on how to do this. How do you reconcile that? We talked a lot about perseverance. And this was one of the most powerful conversations we had in a very short activity. And so this is just one way to bring this type of skill building activity into the classroom, that explicit skill instruction and reflection. The second, forgot about the free resources here. Here are anchor charts. This is in the admin guide that's in the chat. These are anchor charts that you can share with your teachers, bring it back to your school. You can see you've got all 7 skills there, and you have individual skill cards as well that have a definition and example. So really great to hang in the classroom. Our second big idea is the skill-infused transition activities. Now, what I mean by that is, there are times where there may be time in between certain activities. For example, you finished one big, activity, and you just don't have enough time to go into the next thing. So maybe it's at the end of class. If you're teaching secondary, if you're in elementary, maybe it's before they're going to a special, and there's about 10 minutes or so. Using that time to work on those skills is a great use of that time, bringing the skills, but also that rigorous, kind of academic as well. So a couple of ways we do that. So one, we use what are called challenge cards, STEM challenge cards. And we have a little challenge corner, and we have all our maker space supplies, and they're all very basic supplies. And the students pick a card, and maybe they each do the same one. They work in groups and collaborate. They can do different cards based upon choice, but they are completing a challenge. In this case, they are creating a creature that can hide in plain sight within the classroom. There are criterion constraints, and they work towards a solution, but they also know that there's a time limit on that as well. And so that really does work on all of those skills. It's very engaging, and it's a very easy to implement, low prep type of activity. A great return on investment. Another resource I wanted to share with you, a free resource, is one of our timely topics. And this does help build those transition times, using that for skills. And when I think of transition time, it could be even something like a transitioning into a holiday break. So our timely topics are made for relevant, timely events that are happening. And so this one that you will have access to is called STEM Parade. And so it's part of our bigger timely topic called Thanksgiving. And STEM Parade is something we have differentiated for K2, 3, 5, and 6, 8. So you'll have access to all 3 of those grade bands. And so each one of those lessons you see on there, the science lesson, tech lesson, engineering lesson, math lesson, it takes roughly, could be 10, 15, 20 minutes. So what a great thing to do before, Thanksgiving break. It's bringing in those skills that they're going to be needing to use, but also it's very relevant, and it has that rigor before that holiday as well. So science, they learn how to make it float. In technology, they're exploring the history of the Thanksgiving Day Parade. In engineering, they're constructing a prototype, their parade. And you can see we have an example of that. That's the 7th grade teachers parade there for the whole school to enjoy. And in math, they're working the numbers of the parade as well. So this is a great way to build those skills in a relevant, a fun way in 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time. Another example and resource for your teachers that you have access to is to do what's called Beat the Bot. And again, this is grade banded K2, 3, 5, and 6, 8. And in here, we have prompts for the 4 main content areas. And just this example is a math prompt. And so what we've done is we've taken these questions, we put them in AI. And so we do have the AI responses. So the students aren't doing the AI unless you want them to. And then we have them create a better response. Can they beat the bot? So again, you could just pick one of those problems there in the prompt and have them spend just a few moments in coming up with a better solution than AI and having a discussion about that. That's building those creativity, critical thinking, potentially collaboration if they're working together. So it's a great skill building activity that could take minutes at a time. And again, you have access to that. So these are great activities to do in those transition times. They could also be those bell ringers at the beginning or an exit ticket at the end of class as well. All right, our third and final big idea on what has worked is making those skills visible in the classroom. It's one thing to have those posters up in class. It's another thing to actually use them, right? So when the students walk into our classroom, they know that these skills are important because this is what they see when they first walk in. And we have each of those 7 skills there. And then underneath each of those skills is an example of a student exhibiting that skill in class. Now, what's great about this is that the students are identifying that in other students. So we want them to reflect on their own thinking, which is very important, but we also want to give them an opportunity to reflect on these skills, what they see in others as well, and highlight those. And so what we do, which we found very valuable, is we just put a simple Padlet on our iPads. We keep them on our tables, and then as the students are going through class time, they'll write these down, they'll type these in, and at the end of the week, we'll identify a few to highlight and put on our board. But certainly this can be done with Post-its, this can be done many different ways. But when students walk into the classroom, they know that these are important and they care about them. They care about them. And so I wanted to share with you a resource to help bring these skills visible in your classroom, ways to promote that for your teachers to promote that in their classroom. And you will have access to 4 of our resources in our teacher strategy vault. And so these are quick hitting strategies, regardless of the content that you teach or grade level, that will help promote, encourage these skills. And so my favorite of these 4 here is shallow and deep. And it's really looking at critical and creative thinking and can be done in less than 10 minutes. So if I look at the strategy here, it's taking the Venn diagram, but just amping it up. And so in this strategy, teachers will have access to this resource where they're comparing 2 things and they're identifying similarities and differences, but they're identifying what are obvious ones. But then they need to identify what are similarities and differences that aren't as obvious. So it requires a lot of critical thinking, creative thinking to come up with a list of all those similarities and differences, but critical thinking to really identify which ones are obvious and which ones are not as obvious. And with this resource as well, we have a video of this strategy in action, which is great to see this in action in the classroom. So those 4 strategies there, your teachers will have access to. You can share with them. But I did want to highlight something that's part of our VAI Educator Studio. This is our full teacher strategy vault with over 300 strategies. Again, easy to implement, low or no prep at all is required. And so you can see our 7 skills plus other topics are here as well. So if I were looking for something to promote self-direction, it's like, oh, I need something just to work on self-direction in my classroom. Here are all the different strategies for self-direction. One I'm going to come down to. So one of my favorites, especially in our information-laden world and technology, AI, what's real, what's not. This is a great acronym to use, resource to use to help them identify, is this authentic? Is it credible? And I mean, love the name of it as well. So that's just one of 300 different strategies that are part of the teacher strategy vault to help make those strategies visible in the classroom. And so I think Rob's going to start a poll right now. And just curious, we talked about these 3 things. Which of these ideas might you bring back to your school, district, or building? Something that you want, maybe some goals when it comes to these skills. Explicit skill instruction and daily reflection, skill-infused transition activities, or making skills visible in the classroom. Which of those might you want to bring back to your school, district, and building? Robin, how are we looking?
I'll give it a few more seconds here, Dawn, and then we will close it out.
Great, perfect. Excellent.
All right. So the top at 67% is the explicit skill instruction and daily reflection, followed by skill-infused transition activities.
Fantastic. Excellent. Excellent. And then using that time, right? The time in between, maybe different activities, or the beginning as a warm up, as your morning meeting, or your exit, your reflection at the end of the day is a great way to do that. Excellent. Well, it's one thing to provide your teachers with the resources and the different strategies, right, to help save time. But it's another to provide them with the support to really bring this to life. And that's something that we can help with in our professional development, because our professional development is translational. We work with students every single day, and we take what we done with our students, what works, and we share that with teachers, and we share that in a relevant way. If we need to work with teachers on some outdoor ed professional learning, we're going to be doing that outdoors. And we also want to make sure that everything we do is fun. We want to have fun. And so for our skill building, we do have an opportunity for our success skills. This we call a PD bundle here, where we would provide an immersive workshop on building those student success skills to really dive into these 3 areas we talked about, helping teachers put this into practice in their classroom. And then we can also offer up virtual learning sessions in specific content areas and how to make this happen. And then, of course, we have those anchor charts as well to support, and ongoing coaching support as well. And just a reminder, your free resources is everything that you have as part of the admin guide to make those skills implicit in your classroom to bring those to life in your schools. And then just a reminder, we also have opportunity for our VAI Educator Studio. Right now, we have half off membership. Originally $19.99, it's $9.99 for your teachers for a year subscription to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of resources, lessons, and strategies. And with that, I am going to close up, but I wanted to end with our giveaway here. So thank you for sticking with me. And you can register for a chance to win a free lunch and learn for your teachers on topics such as you can see below. Robin is going to put that link into the chat, or you can snap the QR code and just put your name in there. And then if you win, we'll reach out to you and schedule you a free PD session with a lunch. So you get a little taste of our PD, a little taste of some good food, and we'd love to keep the conversation going. So thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for everything you do for your schools, your families, your communities. Have a good afternoon, everyone.